Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Jackson, he, him, and this is Tales from the Backlog, where each week I'm joined by a guest to deep dive a game from our backlogs. Today's game is Slay the Princess, but before we get into that, a few quick things. If this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by. Here's how spoilers work on the show, especially important for Slay the Princess since it is such a narrative-heavy game. We are not going to spoil details about the story. For a while, we're not going to talk about specific things that happened in our playthroughs for a while. We're going to give probably a pretty short famous last words, but I think it's a pretty short kind of generalities at the beginning of the show, and then we'll warn you when spoilers are coming so you can jump out if you haven't played the game yet. And if you like the show, please consider supporting however you can. You can tell a friend, you can support on Patreon, you can leave ratings and reviews. All of those things are super helpful. Now, without further ado, time to introduce the guest. It is Matt, aka Stormageddon. They, them. They are a returning friend of the show, many time guest on the show. They're hosts of Fun and Games and Reignite podcasts, and they are my favorite voice in my head. Matt, welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me. I think we've hit the amount on both of our shows where it is impossible to name all the things we've done, both you on my show and me on this show, because I could think of 3, but I think I've definitely done more than 3 at this point. I've maybe done 3 this year.
Yeah. So most recently you were here for the Wander Stop episode.
Yes.
That was the last main episode, but
Yes.
You were on the Backlog Resolutions episode. You did a bonus Patreon episode about the Switch 2 with me. I think it's 3 just this year. You were going into that and I was like, oh shit, did Matt count the episodes? Because I have no idea at this point
neither.
how many
and
we've done.
we have already committed to at least one more episode this year. So,
That's right.
Yeah. So, we just, you just can't get enough of me, Dave. And I get it. I'm pretty great.
I was going to say I can't get rid of you, but it's probably more along the lines of I can't get enough. Yeah. So thanks for coming back. And shocking nobody, you're here to talk about Slay the Princess, a game that you've never talked about on the internet before.
No, I've never mentioned it. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. It is Slay the Princess on the show today. Slay the Princess is a choose-your-adventure visual novel developed and published by Tabby Games for contemporary consoles and PC in 2023. Tabby Games is primarily a 2-person outfit, husband and wife, Tony Howard Arias and Abby Howard. And if you don't know what Slay the Princess is, we have our quick pitches for the top of the show. I say, choose your adventure with the most interesting starting decision. Matt, what would you say?
I say, what if the voices in your head told you a love story in pieces?
Yes. Voices in the head. Second time we've said that phrase on the show so far already. I played this on PC. I played for about 5 hours. I can't remember if that was 5 hours to roll the credits or because I did go into a second playthrough. I didn't finish it, but around 5 hours I played. How about you?
So I've played the game through twice. I played it when it first came out. The base OG version took about 3 hours and 20 minutes on Steam on the PC. And then for a recent guest on a show that we both adore, Underplayed. Shout out. I guessed it on their show, so I replayed it on the PS5 and it was the pristine cut.
Yeah.
And that took me about 4 hours. I did one playthrough on each. Yeah, and both versions of the game were provided as review keys. So shout out to Tabby Games and the folks doing PR for them for those review codes because I appreciate it.
That's awesome. I should mention also, I did play the pristine cut version. I'm not sure if you can buy the original version anymore.
Nope.
But yeah, it was the pristine cut, the most recent, big update to the game. So let's get into our histories with Slay the Princess, as we normally do to start the show. And as is probably true for so many people that know and talk to you, Matt, my kind of history with Slay the Princess begins with you. So I know that you got hands on this on a show floor and things like that, as you've told the story many times. And you're also a visual novel fan. So this was probably something that just jumped out to you right away, right?
Yeah, so this came out in 2023, and so I first played it the March of that year at PAX East. It was in the Indie Rising section of PAX East, and I remember walking past a couple times, and then one day there was just a giant crowd around it, like people watching other people play, and so I was like, well, I've got time, I'll watch. And we watched, and like my jaw was on the floor just from those early moments because of how the decisions kind of played out. And I went, all right, I need to get hands on with this. So I
Mhm.
chatted briefly with Tony and Abby. They said they had some slots on the Sunday before I left. So I went back that morning and played it, and immediately fell in love with it. I just thought it was really interesting. I loved the tone. I loved the art. And I basically, on the train ride home, messaged Jeff, who wasn't able to come that year, and said, hey, the demo for this game I just played on the show floor, is also on Steam. Please play it right now so I can feel justified in giving our game of the show to it, even though you haven't played it. And so on my train ride home, he played it and then said, yeah, okay, go for it. And so I
Yeah.
did.
Some of the behind the scenes of some of those best of conference awards that go out. You know, if not everyone from a show can make it out there. So
Yeah.
it is pretty impressive to me. Now, you know, I've heard that story before. It's impressive to me anytime a game really stands out on the show floor,
Mhm.
because it's honestly, it's not a great environment to fully like sink into a game. It's so loud. There's so many people, especially if there's people waiting to play behind you. I'm always super like self-conscious about taking too long
Yeah.
and stuff like that, especially for a visual novel to make an impression that is impressive. I'm running out of words. Need my handy thesaurus. So I was not really interested in playing this. It was one of those where I was like, I'm glad people are having fun with this. It doesn't look like my type of thing. I don't mind visual novels at all. I just don't do a lot of them. This is the first one on the podcast. Despite how some people might describe other games I've done, this is the first visual novel I've done on the show. And the reason it's on the show is because it won a Patreon poll. And usually every couple months, some of the patrons get to pick games from my big backlog list and tell me what to put in the polls. And this was the horror game specific month. So I allowed people to pick horror games for that poll. And this was actually your submission, Matt. So it was not like, it's just because it's Slay the Princess. I couldn't think of anyone else to have, anyone better to have on the episode itself. So your pick won the poll, and here you are to talk about it. Look at how things turn out.
Yeah, and for a little behind the scenes, every time Dave asks me to pick something, I often pick a game I like, usually with the intent of like trying to sneak my way back on the show. This is the first time it's worked. Every other time it's like, well, I've already got a guest for that. I'm like, well, all right, fine. Like, I think I had asked to come on for Control and like one other one that I picked. And I was like, well, at least he's talking about a game I love.
Yeah. And to do our kind of top level thoughts about Slay the Princess, we're going to have a pretty interesting discussion ahead of us because I did not like this game at all. I had a really I didn't have a bad time playing it. It's not really that kind of game. Going through the story, I was interested in like how my choices are going to play out. And the way that it played out was deeply, deeply unsatisfying in my playthrough. So like the charitable read that I'm going to give on it, because I know so many other people really like the game a lot, is that the particular choices that I made, which we'll talk about in the spoiler section, and I kind of had fun with, they give you so many different choices that you can make, and I had fun with picking the different choices, including some of the weird kind of off the wall ones. And it resulted in a story that when it tries to come together at the end and tie everything together into this cohesive thing, it made zero fucking sense. And like, I see what they're trying to do, but none of the things that I did in my choices led up to the thing that the game eventually does. And so it was really, really like incongruous and really unsatisfying. So I think like a lot of people's mileage is going to vary. And I know I'm in the minority on people who don't like this game, but I'm just going to get out in front of this. I know you're not going to do this to me, but you're not the only one who's going to hear what I say. I will not accept someone saying you just didn't pick the right things. You didn't pick the good routes. I'm not going to accept that as a rebuttal to the criticism that I'm going to give.
Oh, and you shouldn't, because that's not true. There's no such thing. All the choices are good choices. I mean, it's true. So
I definitely followed my interest for sure. Like when I was making the choices, I followed my interest, and I felt like I was not rewarded for that in the slightest.
Yeah, I guess what I mean by all the choices are good choices is, so to take the exact opposite of Dave's stance, I think
Yeah.
this game is brilliant and it's one of my favorite games of all time. And so, which is a big shoes to fill.
Mhm.
But I've been in other places talking about that, big princess slippers, you might say. But what I mean by that all the choices are good is I think the issue here, the big issue with a game like Slay the Princess and games that are just straight up visual novels with minimal, if no mechanics at all, is
Mhm.
if you don't like the story or the storytelling, you're not going to like the game. There's nothing else to like. It's not like a
Right.
game like Boyfriend Dungeon, which I also never shut up about, where there's dungeon crawling and there's mini game, right? Like there's
Yeah.
other
Yeah, yeah.
stuff. Here, it's all choices and story, and I happen to love it. I think what got me back at PAX East is that I just had no idea what to expect.
Mhm.
And to be clear, like I've not played a lot of visual novels. I think at this point now I've played 6 or 7. And like 3 of them or 4 of them are all dating sims. So like I definitely have a type. But like I don't have like a wealth of dating sim or visual novel knowledge. I have a decent amount, and I've chatted with folks about it who are way more knowledgeable than I am. Our friend Rick from Pixel Project Radio comes to mind, who's very
Mhm.
knowledgeable about visual novels, and so like. I think that my love of it is maybe tempered by like the amount of storytelling I've seen in this format. But I think it's not just that. I think it's also just the way this story was told I connected with because it was something I was interested in, and I think we can
Mhm.
dig more into that as we go.
For sure. It's definitely like neat the way that the game works. Like the structure of it, I think is really interesting. I just had a bad time, but we'll get into that for sure. We've got a lot of stuff ahead of us. So let's take our first music break, and when we come back, we will set up the story in Slay the Princess. Slay the Princess is a choose your adventure visual novel, as we said, and it begins with the narrator telling you about your first goal and what will become your first choice. The narrator says you're on a forest path. At the end of the path is a cabin. Inside the cabin is a princess, and your job is to slay her. If she escapes, she will bring about the end of the world. And so it begins from there. I want to give a few quick shout outs. The voice acting is primarily 2 people. Jonathan Sims voices the narrator and some other voices that will pop up throughout the story. And Nicole Goodnight voices the princess. I thought the voice actors did well. I especially like the narrator as just kind of like that cheeky British narrator type voice, you know. I thought that was pretty good. The voice acting for the princess is also very good. There's a lot of different tones to the princess's voice acting, which is they're basically asking the voice actor to play like, 11 different characters, or probably even more than that.
Yeah, I love both of the talent in this. Nicole Goodnight, actually, funnily enough, is also a streamer, Twitch streamer. And
Hmm.
shortly after the game came out, she played it, of course. And then even in her stream, she would like you could redeem like channel points to get her to like do the different princess voices and stuff. And
Hmm.
she really like kind of leaned into it. But yeah, I think that what really gripped me at that demo is you start the way the game starts. You know, the demo is essentially the first chapter, and like just how you start in media res in the middle of something, you have no idea why you're there. I like stories like that, mostly because I don't ask questions. We've talked about this before, like especially when we did the Yakuza episode. I don't know why I
Uh
said it like that. The Yakuza episode, like both of us very much are very good at not having a freaking clue what's happening in the main story as far as like the twist. So we're
huh.
always gobsmacked by it. I find that for me, that's easy to fall into because I'm a dum dum and I like to just like have it wash over me. I like figuring stuff out, but I'm also like, oh, there's something strange going on here. Cool. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and this game starts out with, the ultimate question, right? So you start out, they say you have to go kill the princess, and you're like, well, it can't be that simple, obviously. Like, I'm not going to go in, kill the princess, and then roll credits in 5 minutes. Like, there's going to be a lot more going on here. So it starts out with that big mystery. Why do I have to kill the princess? If she escapes, she's going to bring about the end of the world. How and why? And, more questions. And so it does like really put you in that state of like, I don't know what the hell is going on here at all. And you're presented with so many different text options in the choose your adventure on the right side of the screen. There's a pane with a bunch of different options. And so most of those options at the beginning are, you can ask the narrator questions like, hey, you said she's going to bring about the end of the world. What did you mean by that? And a whole bunch of other things. You can push back on the narrator. You can be snarky right back to the narrator. There's a lot of stuff that you can do, and it introduces this kind of meta layer to it as well. You're not just picking what you're going to do, but you have an opportunity probably before like most big decisions of like, I want to gather more information here. Let me ask the narrator what's going on. The narrator might not tell you, but you can go through and like, the complexity of all the different things you can ask in all the different situations. And then all the ways that like the web of this choice leads to these 2 choices, leads to these 4 choices. Like that is really complex and really cool. Like it's genuinely impressive how much choice they put in.
Yeah, and very early on, there are 2 voices with you at the start of the game whenever you start the game. It's the
Yeah,
narrator and then the voice of the hero,
right.
which as
Also
far as you
Jonathan Sims,
right, which
same
is
voice
also
actor.
Jonathan Sims,
Yeah,
yeah. And as far as you can tell, both of these voices are in your head. You don't really know, but like that's the gist you get pretty early on is like you're
hmm,
talking to yourself basically to try and understand what's going on. But you don't know much more than that. And I do like that with all those choices too, that there's a back and forth that will grow and we'll talk about it. But I like that back and forth. Like whenever you ask a question, it's rarely just the narrator says something and you move on. It's like the narrator says something, the voice of the hero comments on it, and like you have this back and forth, this dialogue with yourself to like figure out really what's going on. Because yeah, the pitch of the game and why I was interested is the game says is called Slay the Princess. On the poster, the princess is saying, please don't.
yeah,
And when you start
right,
the game, the narrator says, you're here to kill the princess. That's
right.
that. And you
Hmm.
can very easily go, well, that can't be right. You don't kill princesses. And it kind of goes from there.
Right. And so the game kind of reacts to the choices that you make. And it's, it might sound simple at the beginning, but the way that your choices kind of go out in unpredictable directions was another thing that I really liked about the game. I think that part of this game's kind of theme is talking about, how do we treat each other, and maybe even so far as like, you know, people in a relationship who have repeated interactions in all sorts of different situations and stuff. How do those, how do you choose to interact with people, and then how does that situation evolve based on what you do? And it's really unpredictable because you might choose to do something and things can get out of your control based on whoever's motivations might clash with yours or go along with yours or go sideways in some weird way. It's another thing that I really, really liked about the game is like I would try something and it mirrors real life, but I would make a decision because I think this is how it's going to turn out. And it didn't turn out that way because I'm not the only person in this scenario. I'm not the only one with, wants and needs, right? Which I thought was really good. Like it shouldn't be as simple as I pick this, thus the exact thing I picked happens.
Yeah. And it's funny. So I played this game through twice. And when I first played it on PC, it felt like a magic trick. Like I couldn't figure out what choice led to what. We'll talk
Yeah.
about it in the spoiler section more. But on my second playthrough, there's a very first choice you make when you get to the cabin. And I realized, oh, that's a binary. There's not a lot of those, but that's one of them. And then things sprinkle off from there. And so I
Mm.
started to see like where those choices fractured into other choices. But that said, even still, figuring that out, I still couldn't actually plot a path, even having played through it multiple times, because there are still some zigs and zags. And it is really impressive what context adjusts that, because it can just be asking one specific question that then pivots you into something else.
Yeah. Now, here's where it started to get away from me is I played through this, a game meant to be replayed over and over and over again. Like, start in the forest, go to the cabin, make different choices, see what happens. And I probably played about 10 times across, 1.5 playthroughs or something like that. And of those 10 times, I would say there was like 2 of them that I was like genuinely very interested in as I went along. There were a couple that were kind of jokey that I just did to fuck around and see what would happen. And then the other ones were just like they felt like creepypasta. And I say that in a derogatory way. Like they felt like there was no rhyme or reason to why something happened. Like, I picked something and the result did not seem connected to what I chose and what happened even. It seemed weird. And I'll go over that in the spoiler section. But this is that thing where I was like, I got to the end of my first full playthrough where the credits are rolling and I saw like the ending and the conclusion. And I was like, the things that happened leading up to that point did not lead into that ending at all, in my opinion. And it was really, really unsatisfying. And then in those like minute to minutes, there was a good number of the stories when I'm making the choices and like, oh, this weird creepypasta type thing happened. And I'm like, that's stupid. Like, why did that happen? And, I don't know. It's like, I guess we talked about this in the Super Hot episode too, where it's like that type, whenever I get that vibe basically never works for me anymore, ever. I just like seen weird stories like that too many times. And I didn't feel like there was a lot of substance behind, about half of the things that I did. And then we'll talk about it. There's another part of like your roots. There's, I won't say too much. I thought that was interesting and set up some really interesting thematic ideas. And then the ending completely undercut those ideas in a really shitty way. And so that all of these things converging at the end felt really, really incongruous. And that's why I came out of this being like, I don't think I got much out of this experience when there's clearly something to be taken from it. And like, there was a couple where I was like, what I'm doing and what's happening and how the story is playing out is really, really compelling and good, but it was too few and far between for me.
Interesting. I'm curious when we get to the details in the spoiler section,
Yeah.
what you mean by unsatisfying or came out of left field, because my experience, and this is not to be contrarian, it's my experience felt very cohesive in its incohesiveness, if that makes sense, in the sense that I didn't expect there to always be a direct through line, but I did understand what choice I made generated what princess I interacted with. I won't go further than that without spoiler. And so
Right.
those connections made sense to me. The creepypasta part, so I also thought it felt like a creepypasta complimentary. I like that stuff. I don't know, since the era of Five Nights at Freddy's, which is still terrifying and I can't play those games, I've always been curious about the lore. I watched Matt Pat tackle it when he was still on Game Theory. Now I watch the new host tackle it as well. And like, I've always been fascinated by those like narratives and how they weave through.
Mhm.
And I don't mind those kinds of stories. There's something about the kind of goofiness that I really like. It's kind of why I actually really like Super Eye Patch Wolf a lot. He tends to lean into some of that quite a
Yeah.
bit. Especially when like his videos on The Simpsons and Garfield and even recently with like Fear and Hunger and stuff.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and so like I do enjoy that. And so to me, that wasn't a stopping point. I don't know that I even noticed it kind of went that way because I was just in on it. And then as far as like the paths and like where the story went, so I also was confused at points. I still don't know that I quite understand the second ending I got, because the first ending I got, so I think the ending I got the second time through was only in the pristine cut, because they did say they added some princess routes and they added an ending in the pristine cut as well as some minor stuff. And like you listed out all the endings, so we'll be able to talk about it in the spoiler section. I'm not going to go to it here, but like when I got to one of them, on the PC release, I understood it. When I got to the most recent one, I was like, well, I don't really know what happened there, but I'm kind of okay with it. But I think
Mm.
also for me, as someone who's already played it, had already played it once at that point, and intends to play it more times. I had meant to play it one more time before this, but it got away from me. I don't think I minded having questions, but I can see how if you were expecting to feel satisfied and for it to be finite or final, that you could be left wanting by, especially the ending I got on my second playthrough.
Yeah, I suppose like I do think I have a pretty good idea on like what happens. I think I
Okay,
know like the plot. I know what this game is and I know what it's trying to say at the end, and I don't feel like my playthroughs led up to that at all.
got it. Okay.
Um including the part where at the beginning of the game, I think it's right before, it's like right after you hit new game, it brings up a content warning screen
Hmm.
saying that there are, I mean, there's like gore in the game. There's some kind of disturbing stuff, but it also says like, don't worry, this is a love story. And
Mm.
my playthrough through Slay the Princess very much did not feel like a love story at all. And so we'll talk about that later for sure. But that was another thing that like the game straight up says, this is a love story. And then my thing was not a love story.
Oh,
It did not
interesting.
play out in something resembling a love story at all. It played out more of like a shock value horror story in the things that happened in my playthrough. And the shock value, while it is, you know, in the moment something comes up and you're like, wow, that's a fucked up thing that's happening right now. It didn't feel like there was a lot of substance behind a lot of those moments. And so the game really lost me at like basically every turn as I was going through.
That's really interesting because to me, it says this is a love story, and then you don't understand how it's a life story until the end.
Yeah.
Like that's to me felt like the whole point. So it'll be interesting to dig into that. But yeah, the
Yeah.
game does say at the very beginning, this is a love story, and then you go through, and we go some places. I'll leave it at
Right.
that.
We'll leave it at that for sure. Other things that I thought were really good, I think the aesthetics of this game are really, really interesting and cool. So, if you've ever seen a screenshot, you have seen the art style and the various depictions of the princess, even if you've just seen the key art for the game. And so it's very, I don't know how to describe this art style. It's kind of cartoony, kind of like doodleish, like it's not super high production art. That sounds disparaging. I don't mean it to be. It just does. It's like not super high detail art all the time. And then what I think is cool, like a visual touch that the game has, is it has this thing that in the settings it calls the boil filter. You can turn this off if it bothers you. But like everything on the screen, like all the pencil lines and things like that, like wave all the time. They're squiggly and they're always moving. So it's kind of like as if you're viewing the game like over the pavement on a hot summer day, like that kind of thing. And it gives like this kind of unnerving look to an already kind of unnerving art style to begin with. You can turn it off if you don't like it, but I thought it was an interesting visual touch. The way that the characters look and stuff is not, I wouldn't say that like I go looking for that on Instagram or something like that, but for this game, everything looks good. Just visually helps to like set that creepy tone that a lot of the stories need.
Yeah, I think the art for this, I agree. I think the art's phenomenal. It's unique. And it all fits this kind of black and white, like sketch pad kind of style.
Yeah.
Um, I
That's what I mean. So instead of saying low production or some shit, like sketchpad is a good word, a good description to use.
yeah, I've been doing this for like 13 years. Sometimes I get the words right. But like for me, I think it's funny because I would go scouring Instagram for fan art of this stuff. But I think also that's an aesthetic and taste thing too. It can be, right? I could see how this kind of animation style could also turn someone off. But I really liked it. I liked how kind of bare bones the basic princess design was. And then where the details do come in is, of course, the variations of princesses. It's no secret that there
Yes.
is more than one princess, and that's where I think more of the detail comes in. But I really love how it's designed, and like it's mostly in visual novel fashion. It's not moving. It's not like a animation. It's like a variety of still images, sort of like a comic book. And
Yeah.
a lot of visual novels do a version of that. Sometimes there'll be multiple versions of a character, but for the most part, they like switch from panel to panel. It's not like a fluid animation like a pixel art game would be.
Hmm. And there's also a bunch of more like dreamy or otherwise out there art, like
Mhm.
environments and stuff. And those are all really cool. Like it's always weird when you get into one of those situations. There is a supernatural element to the game, and the art, within the limitations of, like you said, there's not animations really. It's just, we have an environment design, we have a room, or we have an outdoor, landscape or something to show you within that. Things get weird, and it's always cool to see like how things change in that way. The music is done by Brandon Boone, and I also think the music is fantastic. It is, first of all, since it's a visual novel and you need to not only read but listen to voice acting the whole time, the music should not be distracting, and it's not. The music does a good job of setting up the background, and one nice thing I'll just throw out there right now about the music is you have this main menu music, the main theme. I think the song is even called The Princess if you go look up the soundtrack. We're just kind of like this repeating piano arpeggio. Repeating arpeggios build up tension really well. And then what this game does is it will take that melody and warp it and twist it in a lot of fucked up ways, depending on what situations you find yourself in. So it's not like reworking the melody and like chopping it up and using bits and pieces very often, but what it does is it will pitch shift it or slow it down or both. I think that's what happens when you slow it down is you pitch shift it anyway. Listen to me talking about music, but you know what I mean. The way they fuck with that main melody is interesting, and it was always cool to like pick it up. And whenever that happens, you look at the screen and you're like, yeah, this things are weird, aren't they?
Yeah, it kind of is a precursor to knowing things are about to go to shit. And also something this game does that we talked a lot about in one of the longest episodes we've ever done together in Metroid 2, 3 versions, uh, is the effective use of silence. And this,
Yeah.
what like the game designers did with the sound design and the music is there are moments where you like go into the cabin or go down the stairs into the cabin and there's no music and it's
Yep.
just the narrator talking and it gives this ominous sense of like eerie. Ominous sense of eerie. I guess that's not repetitive. I don't know. I was just
You
saying
used
how
your
I'm good
good
with
word
words.
already.
Yeah, I know. Brain power is done. But I agree. I think the main theme is great, really memorable, and the like something's up without spoiling story stuff yet. Something's up because the next time you hear the track start again, it's like a little word in the beginning, or like it's whirring or warped towards the end, or on a loop. And so like
Hmm.
even if you're not quite sure something's wrong yet, the music is kind of letting you know you're in for it. And
Yeah.
I think it's really well used and never gets tired. I think it's a pretty enough melody that even as it repeats and is changed, it's engaging in how they do it.
Yeah. For any like hangups that I've had about like enjoying the routes that I took, reading through the story and stuff like that, it was always suspenseful. Like I always wanted to see what was coming up because you legitimately have no idea what's coming
Hmm.
based on your choices. And especially if you made a choice that's like really weird to begin with, you have no idea what's going to happen because of it. And so when the music drops out and it's just the narrator talking, you're like, "Oh boy, what's something bad's going to happen soon." Yeah. So yeah, aesthetically really good. Also, the sound design is good. There's not like a ton of sound effects and stuff, but the ones that are there are good. Often gross and effective for, just little punching up what's happening in the scene and stuff like that.
Yeah, the sound effects are used frequently enough to punctuate stuff, but not frequently enough that it gets overwhelming. But they are rarely used for something cheery. Most of the sound effects are
Yeah,
about
I mean
something
this
terrible happening.
yeah, this game is in October for a reason. It is a horror game, so that's a good thing to kind of mention. Like, I would say this is a horror game, but I wouldn't say this game was like scary. Often there's definitely a lot of tension, because anything can happen. There is shock value, as we've said. There's gore. There's some gruesome or disturbing imagery. There's scary depictions of characters. Did you find this game to be scary or more of like that tense kind of horror?
It was spooky and yeah, I'd say tense. That said, I would never play it with the lights off. Like I
Hmm.
wouldn't play it like alone at home
Before
after
bed.
hours, yeah, before bed with the lights out because I think there's
Yeah.
enough in it that it could like spook me. But yeah, it
Hmm.
wasn't like this isn't Dead Space. Like I wasn't like freaking out every 10 minutes. This
Right.
definitely is there are some jump scary kind of moments, but they are all played for like minor shock value. None of them are jump scares in the truest sense of like you're gonna like jump and like unless you're really skittish, most of them are meant to like even the jump scare moments are meant for you to feel momentarily uncomfortable or uneasy, not like freak out or jump.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I think I remember jump scares, but there's not like a lot of them.
No.
And depending on what routes you go on, and there's so many different ways that your stories can play out, there's not going to be a jump scare in every, play session or something like that.
Yeah.
There's just a couple, and I think when they happen, they make sense, but definitely not like sometimes, I've played some other visual novels before, and I would, sometimes play them before bed because reading makes me sleepy, whether it's in a game or whether it's, a book. And this is not one that I would play before bed. Like it didn't
Yeah.
scare the shit out of me, but I don't want to like dream about Slay the Princess, you know?
Yeah. Legit.
Yeah. So anything else in like this non-spoiler part of the episode? I think that we've kind of touched on like the the way the game is built up and the aesthetics and stuff like that. I personally don't have a whole lot else to add before like wanting to dig into spoilers.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that the branching story is kind of pretty apparent pretty quick. And even though we're
Hmm.
not going to explain here until we get past the spoiler section how you how the chapters unfold, I think that what's really interesting about how things are pulled together is that it doesn't take long for you to figure out how to mess with the game in the
Hmm.
sense that like how to poke holes or push back and every choice you make and everything you do, even and you said this earlier, even for someone who didn't necessarily love where all the choices went, you did love that basically everything affected a choice. Like there's
Yeah.
no frivolous options. There are some stuff that are more informational, but like for major choices, they all go somewhere, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
even the things that I kind of describe as like this is a joke path that I'm going on, that still went to a place.
Yeah.
It wasn't like eating the fish in Near Automata. Like you just die instantly and get a game over. Like there's nothing like that in Slay the
Yeah.
Princess. So, who do you think you'd recommend this to?
So, I mean, first and foremost, I'd recommend this game to anyone who is interested in a weird and wacky narrative. I think that, but the caveat or the grain of salt, which I alluded to earlier, is if you do not like this story, you will not like this game. It is
Yeah.
one of those kinds of visual novels where the narrative is the thing here. The narrative is the gem. And so, like, my fervent love for it is because I was on board from the beginning and never let down. And so I think but that said, also you can finish it in 3 to 4 hours. I think and it's I think $30 on Steam or
Yeah.
something. So like I think I'd honestly recommend this to anyone who wants to try a visual novel and doesn't mind a creepy story. I
Yeah.
think it's worth the price of admission. I think because I think even if you don't like it, it's not it's still I think unique enough that it's worth experiencing to see if you like it.
Yeah. I'm not mad that I played it. I just really didn't like what I got out of
Yeah.
it. But still, it is a really interesting game. I haven't really played anything like it. And again, like the achievement of all of these branching storylines, like this huge web of possibilities for where your decisions can take you, is impressive. And I've heard a lot of other people, including you, the folks over at Geeks and Grounds did a series on this, like people that I respect, whose opinions I respect, talking about like what a great experience they had with it. And I'm over here looking at my, list of things that happened. I'm like, man, did I do something wrong? But like I said earlier, I'm not going to like accept that as like, well, you have this opinion because you picked the bad things. Well, it's like, in my opinion, if that is a possibility, don't put the bad things in the game. I don't think that that's like really what's going on here, but that's, I'm making a straw man right now. But that is, I guess, like the risk you take with something as complicated as this. Either some of the story routes are going to be better than the others, or they're not all going to fit with this neat ending, which is definitely something that I think I experienced. But I would still recommend it, if you like the idea of a visual novel with a bunch of story choices that go out in weird and unpredictable ways, and knowing that I'm kind of on the outside of like all these other people who really love it, I'm not going to say like everyone else is wrong. I just had
You're not
really,
going to go Principal Skinner on everybody.
No. Well, the children, they're wrong, but the children aren't listening to this podcast.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's past their bedtime.
So yeah. I know that you recommend it. I don't like the fact that I had such a terrible time playing the game, but hey, that's what happens sometimes. And we'll dig into that more in the spoiler section for sure. But before spoilers, we always do a little bit of housekeeping, starting with talking about the things that the guest does. So, as I said at the top, Matt hosts the Fun and Games and Reignite podcasts. There, you also been doing a lot more writing throughout this year. So please tell people about the stuff that you do and where they can find you.
Sure, I will try and keep it brief. I do less shows. Every time I come on this podcast, I'm doing less stuff. So like
you're gonna reach Nirvana one of these days and come on and be like, Dave, I don't have podcasts anymore. I'm just here.
Yeah, right. I mean, everyone knows anyone who started a podcast is a mistake, right? Like we all admit that, right?
Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, so as I hinted at earlier, I've been podcasting for about 13 years, and I have two shows that I'm currently still doing. One is the Fun and Games podcast that I host with the incredible Jeff Moonen. The main show is topic-based. Jeff and I tackle a different topic each episode, whether it's, is grinding in games good? What's the best way to signpost in a video game? We do retrospectives, both genres and console retrospectives. We have guests on, interview developers, composers, rappers who rap about video games, all sorts of folks. David joined us for our Xbox 360 retrospective, which Dave called the minute we started doing retrospectives. And
that's right.
Happy to
this is a two-way
that.
Street. I can make demands too, Matt.
It's true. And then of course we also do something else in the feed called Side Quests. It is something of my design. I was tired of the bullshit negativity on the internet, so I decided to create a space where people can gush about a game judgment free. And we are coming up on, by the time you hear this, we'll have blown past our 400th episode, which is really exciting. We're doing that episode, though we have not recorded at this point yet. Ooh, timey-wimey.
Mm-hmm.
Our 400th episode is going to be on Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, and we're being joined by the one and only Thrak to discuss it, which is exciting for the milestone episode. But Dave has done a bunch of individual episodes, including Rain World, Dragon Quest V, what
else
Pathologic
did I do?
2,
Disco Elysium,
a
bunch of them,
so many. And yeah, it's for anyone. If you're listening to this podcast and we've never met, but you want to gush about a game for 5 to 15 minutes, hit me up on socials. Happy to have you on. But also really quick, my other podcast is Reignite. It's a playthrough podcast or play along podcast that I started with the incredible Frankie Bradley Lestrange. And it started as playing through the Mass Effect trilogy and deciding to make choices as Commander Shepard as if we were in Shepard's shoes, and then justifying and discussing those choices. And then more importantly, which aliens we romanced and why, which is the thing people care about most. And after we finished that, we went on to Andromeda, and now we are playing the Dragon Age franchise and are currently making our way through Dragon Age 2. And remember, all Templars are bastards. But those are the two shows that I do. And then, as Dave alluded to, I've been writing more. We have a Patreon for fun and games. We have a free tier, and for that free tier, I've been writing a review a month, mostly indie games now. But there is a chance that there are a couple AAA games I'm excited about that I might write about. But it's been really fun to flex that muscle. I've been writing for the last few years. Last year, I wrote some like think piece articles, and I've been doing my top 10 games of the year as an article as well. And
Hmm.
it's just been really fun to flex that muscle and develop that voice. As of when we're recording, my most recent review is on Date Everything, which was a
Yeah.
blast to write about. And my plan for September is to write a review about Demon School, which is an RPG I've been looking forward to for quite some time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I do. If you want to find any of that and it's all fallen out of your head, you can just go to djstormageddon.com. It has links to both my podcasts, the Patreon, my merch store, if you want to throw some money at me, and all of my socials.
Yeah, and that will be down in the show notes, so people can easily check it out. But definitely worth your time. Both of the things on the Fun and Games feed, the regular topic episodes, but also side quests. Just hear people talk about games they love for a short time. What a concept. And then, yeah, if you're playing those BioWare games, definitely play along with Reignite as well. So those will be down in the show notes. I love everything that Matt does. And I keep saying this, one of these days I am going to replay the Mass Effect trilogy, and you and Frankie will be my co-pilots for that.
I can't wait
there
for
we
that.
go. Yeah. So I did my plugs up at the top. The last one that I did not do is the Discord server, which we would love to have people join. It's a nice community of people, especially if you want to come in and talk about, your favorite routes in Slay the Princess and the cool things that happened and things like that. Come in and join us. And I promise it's not the Slay the Princess hater zone. I'm probably by myself. I'm not hating, but you know what I mean. So Discord, it's a cool place. There's an invite link down in the show notes. And with that being said, we are going to take a break. When we come back, it's going to be full spoiler time for Slay the Princess. Right before we get to full spoilers for Slay the Princess, I would like to say thank you to some wonderful people who help support the show. A big thank you and shout out goes out to Chris Nelson, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Fakori, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S, Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E, Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rob Smith, Rigamort, Sil Canet, Ashton Ruby, Levi, John E, Aliasi, Joseph Hooper, Yorkie Duval, Aaron, Squill, Alan K, and many more. Your support on Patreon is greatly appreciated. It really helps me out in a lot of different ways, and if anyone out there would like to join them and kick me a few bucks a month, you can do so at patreon.com/realdavejackson. Now, with that being said, let's go back for full spoilers for Slay the Princess. Okay, we're back. It is full spoiler time for Slay the Princess. And the usual spoiler warning is in effect. We're not going to go chronologically through this game as if that was really possible, but to kind of leave open the possibility, I might want to talk about the ending within the first minute of this section. So don't stick around if you don't want to hear like ultimately what's going on in the game. Go play it for yourself. It's pretty short, and then come back. But we are going to start with the first question that the game poses to you. Do you slay the princess or not? Do you remember what you did your first time?
So I do, for both my first playthrough and my most recent playthrough. The first time through, I did not slay the princess.
Okay.
And then the second time through, the most recent playthrough, I did slay the princess. So I did do both versions. Yeah, the outcome, it's very interesting how the two, because that's the most binary choice in this game, is that first choice. Everything branches from there.
Like, do you take the knife or not? Or
Correct. When you take
okay.
the knife, you can only get a certain amount of princesses, and if you don't take the knife, like, whether you take the knife or not sets you on one of two paths to get one or two sets of princesses. They may reconverge elsewhere, but for the most part, that's the first big branch.
Okay. So my first time I did kill the princess, and every choice that it gave me to, are you sure? Oh, look, she's, do you go back and take the knife and stuff like that? So I killed the princess, and then it gives you a choice. Do you go back and pull the knife out? Do you go check on her to make sure she's dead? And I went back to get the knife, and she killed me. She wasn't actually. This is the first time where you're like, I knew there was some weird shit going on, but it's actually like a supernatural type thing.
Mhm.
The princess is not just a princess. Um,
Yeah.
so the other part of this is that after you do your route the first time, however it ends, it usually ends with someone dying. Not all the time, but usually you go to a second half of the route where you start in the forest again. You remember what happened your first time, but the narrator at least acts like he doesn't know. And I think he like legitimately doesn't know. So that's something that we held back. Like you and the princess will remember too. That's
Yep.
another thing too. Like if you come across the princess your second time, if you don't just like turn around and leave the forest, the princess will kind of remember things too. And so there is this like weird conservation, but only between the two of you. It seems like the narrator doesn't know. And then I think the voices in your head know, like the voice of the hero. And then there's always a new voice that pops up.
Yeah, basically the narrator is the only one who doesn't know. So it's a time loop game. We didn't
Yeah.
say that in the first section. It's a time loop game. If the princess dies or if you die, time loops. And it's funny you mentioned if you decide to go the other way in the forest. So I assume you did that also.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't do that on my first playthrough. So on my
Okay.
PlayStation playthrough, I did that. What happens is if you decide to just leave and not slay the princess, you end up in the woods again. But now there are multiple cabins and like time kind of fractures and like it just gets really wonky. And I thought that was kind of funny. It's kind of
Hmm.
like a little joke solution like, oh, you're not going to slay the princess? Well, now here's like 18 cabins. What do you do now,
Yeah.
smart guy?
So I did this 2 times. The first playthrough, after I stabbed the princess and then she killed me, we woke up in the woods. I turned around to leave. The narrator's like, the world's gonna end if you leave. And I was like, all right, cool. And I left. And the world ended, and that was the end of the first
Yeah.
route. In my 5th playthrough, I just immediately turned around as soon as it started
Yeah.
and walked out. And you do this, you have to do it multiple times, I think, but the
Yeah.
world fractures.
Yeah.
And like things get really, really weird. And I think it was like kind of a non-standard playthrough.
Yeah.
This might be one of the reasons why, like, so it took me 6 playthroughs to get to the credits.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was basically a wash as far as princess content. There was nothing, I didn't see the princess in that 5th time. Had I explored something else, maybe things would have been a little different. Also, one thing, I'm kind of glad I didn't mention it before. If you go down a similar route to one that you've already done before, like say I stabbed the princess, the second time I do that exact thing, the options to do the same thing again will be grayed out.
Yep.
So you
know
can't,
you've done it. Yeah.
so you know that you've done it, but also like I think the game wants you to have 6 distinct, experiences instead of
Mhm.
like multiple ones. And we'll get into why here in a bit.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that. I think what's really interesting is like so we talked about the first choice whether you slay the princess or not, and you talked about how you went to like you killed her, you left, and like you can either go back upstairs or you can go check on her. And what's funny is if you kill the princess and she's dead, and then you go back upstairs, you open the door and there's a black void. You can't leave.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you saved the world, but you're also isolated. And that at that point, you can just pass time for as long as you
Yeah.
want. But then eventually you decide, well, I guess if I can't get out, I'm just going to kill myself.
Right.
And the narrator doesn't like that solution. He wants you to stay here forever to protect the world.
Right. That was my second playthrough, that exact sequence of events.
Yeah.
And very soon, like, that was probably the point, second playthrough, where I was like, the narrator is, you cannot trust anything the narrator says. Like,
Yeah.
in the first time you play, when you ask all the questions, the narrator's super cagey about, like, I ask, like, why is the world going to end? And he's like, it's just going to end. Like, what do you need? What more detail do you need than that? Why? I don't need to tell you more. And so you're like, all right, buddy, I got my eye on you. But then the second time, where the narrator's like, no, everything's good. We did the thing. Like, you've served your purpose. You just chill in this cabin until the end of time. That's when you're like, all right, fuck this guy. And then the third time is the time when I was like, wow, the narrator's like really overstepping here. And that was when I did not take the knife with me, went down into the basement, tried to save the princess. Someone locks the door and throws the knife down. And the narrator basically like takes control of your body and forces you to attack the princess. So yeah, I assume you got that one as well.
I've gotten that one. So the path that I did this time is I attack the princess, we fight, I finally kill her, and it's like a knockdown drag out fight, and we both end up dying.
Yeah.
And the next cycle after that is with the beast. And what was really interesting with the beast, so the beast storyline is this princess is jacked, she's aggressive, and she wants to fight you. And what was interesting about that one is as you play that one out, you unlock and you unlock the voice of the stubborn. And the funniest thing about the stubborn is, so the narrator's telling you you can't beat her. She's too powerful. You can't kill
Mm-hmm.
her. But if you have the voice of the stubborn in your head, when she kills you, the voice of the stubborn goes, well, I'm not dead. I'm going to get back up. And the narrator's like, you can't do that. You're dying. And then you get up. And it's like,
Oh.
how did you do that? And it just it goes and it goes and it loops. And it's just really interesting. Like, what I love about the voices in your head is they are determined by the actions you take. Like, I remember the very
Mm-hmm.
first time I played the demo, I let the princess kill me, and I was kind of like weak about it. I was kind of like reserved. And so then I got the voice of the weak. And when you go to fight the princess again, she's the tower. I don't know if you got the tower in your playthroughs.
See, this is something I should have written down.
Yeah.
I don't know the names of the princesses that I got, except for, I think there's one called the damsel that I
Yes.
got, where she's like super submissive to you.
Mhm.
Other than that, because they give you this menu after you beat the game where you can go through and look at all the princesses you've got, and I could not figure out what things meant in that menu, because I was like, I did the game 6 times. Why are there 13 things lit up here?
Mhm.
It didn't make any sense to me. Anyway, so yes, I did not do the tower. I also didn't do the beast
Yeah.
because I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so the each chapter gives you the name of that version of the princess as you
Yeah, I just didn't
start.
write them down.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I did because I knew I wasn't going to remember. But like, yeah. And so this time around, I took a more aggressive. Oh, so the beast actually was the first one. The adversary is the one where you fight in circles and you have the stubborn kind of pushing you to get back up, and you can both
Okay.
never die and you're immortal. And the narrator starts to complain, why won't you die? You're both supposed to die, which
Mm,
starts to give up the ghost that the narrator knows something.
yeah.
But then you eventually do die and then it resets again. But yeah, I wrote them down because I knew I wouldn't remember. But I just decided to take a more aggressive route because my first time through on PC, I definitely took a more submissive, like, I'm going to try and save the princess route,
Right.
um, which doesn't end well for you either.
Right. Well, a lot of times it doesn't end well for the princess, and that's
Yeah.
what I talked about how you can't really predict how things are going to play out. You can't start a run and be like, I'm going to save the princess,
Yeah.
because the narrator has agency in the story too. And a lot of times it will end with like the narrator causing you to kill her or her to kill you. There was one time I did it. It was the time when he took control of the body, when I like resisted the narrator and the princess was like, look, I see what's going on here. I see you resisting. I got to put a stop to this. And she killed me.
Yeah.
And that's what led to the damsel, where she's being super pleasy. And, you're like, do you want to get out of the cabin? She's like, whatever would make you happy. I want to do that. And we have the voice of the smitten in
Yeah.
that one. So like, I like in that playthrough how they kind of like portray this through the text too, because when the narrator's in control of your body, you have like 20 text options that say slay the princess, and there's one that says resist, like way at the bottom.
Yeah.
And so it kind of shows you like how much control the narrator has. Real quick, before I forget, you mentioned the voices in your head. I didn't like them. I didn't like any of them, except for, no, I didn't really like the voice of the hero. It was just kind of like a straight putt, you know, try to do the right thing type character. It turned into like the thing that I most want to do is make a choice and see how the story progresses. And I like how the voices in your head reflect the actions that happened before, like you said. Like, I think that that's, if you're going to do this, that's a good way to do it. It just turned into like the peanut gallery at a certain point where it's like, I don't give a shit what the voice of the smitten is saying. I don't feel the same way. And I also I don't care about what this character is saying. So I'm clicking through its dialogue, trying to like get to the point where I can get to the interesting part again. And that was basically all of these voices in the head. I really can't think of any of them that I thought like legitimately added to my experience. And I don't think the game would be worse without them.
I completely disagree.
Yeah.
I think the game would be empty and boring without them. I think the cavalcade is what makes the decision making like over the top and ridiculous.
I don't need another perspective. That's what it is. Like, I have my perspective on what's going on. I don't need the voice of the smitten who's in love with the princess to just be like, look at how beautiful she is with the knife in her hand. Like, I don't need that.
And I get that, but I guess the point the game is making is that it's not about like you, the player, and you, the character, aren't necessarily the same. And it's putting kind of conflict that I think makes the choices you make more interesting, because then you get to hear other dialogue. And I like by the time you like, I'm on my third loop, it's like the hero, the hunted, the opportunist, and the stubborn. And by the final like roundabout, they're all bickering with each other about what's the right action. And I think it adds to the confusion of it. And when we find out what's really going on here in the tail end, I think that those conflicting voices are proven to be anomalies that the narrator, because we'll find out who the narrator is, like didn't anticipate. And I think it's an interesting take, and I really enjoy the different voices. But that said, I can totally see how if you don't like the voices, the game is going to be more frustrating and a little more empty, because they fill that world. They're part of the way the world goes. And so I can see how you would be conflicted if you don't enjoy that part of the game, because it's a huge part of the game.
It is a big part of it. I will disagree with you in that the player and your player character are different. Your player character has no they're nothing without the things that you, the player, pick. Like, they're not an established character within the world. You don't know anything about them. They don't have their own desires. They have a list of options that basically cover the whole spectrum of things that you might want to do in that situation. I don't view the character and myself as separated in this.
Right. I guess what I was saying is a bit confused. To be clear, I think that the game doesn't care what the character wants. The game wants to tell the story. And so your character can't just make a choice, because that character doesn't have that freedom. They're under the control of all this other stuff going on.
Yeah. And that's why it's good that things spin out of your control that way, and why like the narrator having pull becomes like a complicating factor when you say you try to do the right thing and the narrator's like, you're not doing the right thing here. Like, we're going to make sure that you don't do the right thing here. Which makes me wonder about, like, I know what the narrator's purpose is in the story. We'll talk about that in a second. But I also wonder, like, because you're going through all of these different interactions, and like, you choose how you want to interact with the princess. You choose sometimes how much you're willing to sacrifice to save the princess.
Right.
And the narrator, like, if you spin this out into like parallels in real relationships between people and real interactions between people, like, you can make your choice with how to interact with them. They can make their choice to respond in however way they respond. But this game is not as simple as you and the princess interacting, because you have this third party with as strong a motivations as anybody. And so I think that's one of the big things that this game is about, is how you interact with people, and especially like how, if you do view this as a love story and a continuous story of these two people in these different situations, how their interactions are like warped and twisted by outside influences like the narrator. And there was some times when I was able to really key in on that, like the one where the narrator takes control of you. Um, think about anything else happening in your personal life that would change the way that you approach an interaction with someone. And then there's other times where like the narrator seems helpless and I don't, like, maybe it's just not an ever present controlling thing. I got that thing so early in the playthrough where the narrator took control that I almost wonder why it didn't take control anytime I disobeyed what they wanted me to do.
Yeah, I think part of that is that the character you're playing as, like their strength of will varies based on the loop and how much awareness they have,
Hmm.
maybe. Like that's the logic I can apply to it. Like if you
The
got it
second
on your
time around, for sure. Like when
right.
you know and the narrator doesn't know, then you kind of have a leg up.
Yeah. And so I think that's kind of why that can't keep happening. But I will admit that, like, because the choices are tied to other choices in a specific way, you can get these things that sometimes feel out of loop, but also it's a time loop game and it's unclear. Like, again, this starts in media res, like with you just being there. So you have
Hmm.
no idea how many loops you've had. And depending on the ending you get, it also alludes to this loop being going on more than you even know or are aware of. And so I think it's part of that too that confuses it in a way that I think is a beneficial to this time loop story.
Yeah. I remembered, I think the thing that broke me on the voices in the head is that storyline. I think it was the storyline where you just turn and leave and like the fabric of time breaks. And it shows you all these things of like the basement stairs like spiral out in all directions and stuff. And you wake up in the second half of that loop and all of the voices are there, every
Yeah.
single one of them. And that was incredibly annoying because they all chimed in on
Yeah.
every situation. And I think that was the point where I was like, shut the fuck up and let me get back to making the choices. And like, I get it. You broke everything. Everything's broken, including your mind. So all the voices in your head, it's like, things get out of control with your mind skills in Disco Elysium and suddenly everything is chiming in. Like, I
Yeah.
get that. But this is not written or voiced nearly as good as Disco Elysium, in my opinion. So, like, those moments that really missed. And from that point on, I never wanted to hear anything that those voices said.
I mean, I guess I can see how that's an unfortunate early outcome. I still don't think it would have pushed me in that direction, but I can totally see where you're coming from with that for sure. Um, it's funny, I got the kaleidoscope moment where everything unravels, but I cannot remember if I got all the voices at once. That said, my notes are a list of voices and a list of princesses, so I too didn't even take detailed enough notes. Um, but like, yeah, I don't know. I think again, I think it's a taste thing, which you can't argue about, right? You either like something or you don't. There's not really anything to um unravel there, to use a
Yeah.
term you were using before.
Yeah. And like saying that the voices are not written as well as the things in Disco Elysium, that's a really high bar. Like, I wasn't mad at the voice of the hero. I just like didn't find it compelling.
Right.
And so that's a taste thing, I think. And then like is when all of them were there, it was like it was the peanut gallery. Like, will you all just shut the fuck up and let
Yeah.
me continue? Because there's like fucking 10 of them and they're all talking one by one by one by one. It's like the worst version of like an RPG where all of your party members have to comment on every single thing that happens. You just literally go down the line and they all say their 2 cents. Um, there's one storyline that I thought was really good. I wanted to get that out there too. So the one that I thought was really good was I started the same as the one where I let the princess kill me before. So you go downstairs, you have no knife. They lock the door, and one of the ways this can go is you're like, "Well, I don't have a key for your handcuffs, princess," and she's like, "That's cool," and she just starts chewing her arm off.
Yep.
Um,
This is where the sound effects come in, and
Yeah, it's super
yeah,
gross. The sound
yeah,
effects are real gross. It's good. And so the first time, I resisted the narrator, and she ended up killing me with the knife that someone threw down there. This time, I just killed her right away with the knife, just to see what would happen. And I'll get back to this. I think this is one of the reasons why my playthrough was maybe different. I think I had a different approach to a lot of this, where I was much more fuck around and find out, just see what happens type of
yeah,
mindset. Anyway, this goes to the witch. I did write this down. The princess is like this evil witch. She's really fucking pissed. The narrator is like, oh, you actually have been here before, because she remembers you, that you killed her. And then one of the options you can get in that thing is to give the princess the knife or keep it for yourself. And I was like in fuck around and find out mode, and I just gave her the knife. Everyone is like, do not give her the knife, dude. And I gave it to her. And she asks, why are you giving me this? You know I'm going to kill you, right? And I was like, the quote, I wrote it down because I thought it was good. It says, we're both hurting. This gives us a second chance to not hurt each other anymore. And she immediately kills you.
yeah,
But this is the thing that most ties in with the ending, in my opinion. The other 5 routes that I had almost have nothing to do with what happened at the end of my game. This one did, and I took the chance because it was the first time I was presented this chance to actually do something like this. All of my other routes, given the one where I turned around in the woods, all of my other routes didn't turn out in a way where I could make this kind of choice. Even the first one where I killed her right away, I killed her in this one too, and it came back in this type of way. And this one's interesting because it goes to a part 3 where you and the princess are talking, and you agree that you've both hurt each other in the past, and it should stop. I think you're tied 1-1 in kills in this route, and so she has the blade. I give it to her. I think she's like tied up in these. I want to say there's like these thorny vines that have
Mhm.
tied her up, and you convince her, like, you can trust me. Give me the blade. You cut her out, and you go to leave, and then the hands come and grab her. But it was like the only one of these where there felt like there was a kind of like an understanding reached, which is a big part of the ending, and it's part of the reason why I felt very unsatisfied by the ending, because the ending was like very much this type of thing. My previous 5 playthroughs had nothing to do with this type of interaction. Like no kind of understanding, no back and forth. You know what I mean? Like in your playthrough, number 1, did you get this one? But number 2, did you have more things like this in your playthrough?
Yep. I
Okay.
think so. I think it's with it being by choice this way, you can get a bunch of choices that just feel disparate from each other, but also like you, the princess doesn't remember until you start these loops. Before that, it seems like she doesn't know you, where it's revealed later that you both know each other very well. That's where the
Yeah.
love story part comes in. I think if you get a bunch of ones where it's clear that there's no kindness to give, but also the game does bury some options for kindness, because a lot of the like kill the princess and stuff is at the top, and you really have to look for that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I looked, I want to be clear. I
yeah,
looked through every single option every
no, of
time.
course.
Yeah.
But I think it's also the order you go in, because like for me on my second full loop, like I got the specter, the nightmare, and the wraith, and that's the other way. When you kill her and you actually kill her, and then you try to leave but you kill yourself and you can't, so you kill yourself, she becomes this ghost and she
Yeah. I got that
terrorizes
too.
you.
Hmm.
And like I like that route, because you can also do it. That route also has a moment like that where you can like agree to like work together. But once she becomes, it's either the nightmare or the wraith, she can literally like stop your body from functioning,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I got that.
your voice is with the paranoid is the voice that you gain, and the voice of the paranoid eventually realizes if it speaks into existence your body functions, it could keep you alive. And what I want to talk about there is not necessarily the narrative, which I thought was done well, but there's an audio thing that's really great, is like the voice of the paranoid starts to say, you know, brain, heart,
Yeah.
lungs,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
over and over again. and it's keeping you alive. And if he stops, you start to die, and then he starts to do it again. And then the conversation with the princess continues, and in the background, on a low simmer, on a low murmur, you hear
Mm-hmm.
those repeated steps. And I just thought it was such excellent sound design, because it gives you this kind of frantic feeling as you scramble to try and come to an agreement.
Yeah, that one was really good. I can't remember if I got it on my first playthrough or my second, but I think I just scrolled past the word paranoid in my notes. But anyway, I did see that one, but I didn't see, you mentioned before, like I think it was the one with the ghost.
Yeah.
I didn't see an option, or like I must not have arrived at an option
Yeah.
for a moment of understanding or a dialogue or something like that, because that one was just a total, you know, ghost horror show in my thing. So
Yeah.
like you start to see where like I did, you know, I did a couple of like, well, I'm just going to rebel. I'm going to leave the forest. Like I did that. And then I did the one where I killed the princess, and then she got up and killed me. And then on part 2, I left the forest. And then we get to the ending where like the game is trying to bring this stuff together. If you fully pursue the ending, you'll get into like another dialogue with the princess about this loop and how we can do better for each other. Like it's going to be hard, but we're going to have to make the choices to not harm each other as we go through. But so little of my playthrough before that had either offered me the choice, or like a couple times when I chose to do the nonviolent thing, the narrator intervened and made it a violent situation. So that felt like it didn't fit at all with my experience. And that's where like I'm gonna like leave open the possibility that if I had chosen different things, if you know, other people did completely different things than me, they may arrive at that point being like, yeah, the game actually was about this the whole time for me. And like, it wasn't like I always chose the violent option. Sometimes I chose to not do anything and was either forced into a violent situation, or the princess, you know, yeah, the princess killed me a couple times. There's only one time when like the full route didn't end with someone dying. Well, besides the time breaking one. And that was, I think I let the ghost possess my body to leave the cabin.
Yeah.
I think that was it. Cause it was like, you had the option, like you can try to fight the ghost with like your little knife. And I'm like, I can't fight the ghost. If it wants to possess my body, it's going to possess my body. So, all right, hop in, let's go. Let's see what happens. But you see what I mean? Like the choices that I made didn't feel like it led to that ultimate, like, you know, these characters are actually like in love. That felt so incongruous with my playthrough. There was so little dialogue really between them. It was all action in mine. And so like when we get to the end and we want this love story to come together, and we want this like ending where you're supposed to have this moment of understanding, it felt like very shoehorned to me because nothing really supported that in my roots leading up to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where I disagree that it feels shoehorned is maybe the love story specifically, maybe, but like there's something we haven't talked about yet is the shifting mound and
Right.
how,
We'll get there for sure.
and like I think that the experience with the shifting mound is where that stuff comes in. Not
Okay.
necessarily love, but understanding.
Okay, let's talk about the shifting mound. So after your playthroughs come to an end, they all come to an end with like this certain version of the princess. These arms come up, they swallow up this version of the princess, and then you go into this void. And there's a mirror there. You touch the mirror, all the voices disappear, and you talk to this thing. It's like a god or something like that. That's what it appears to be. And then it's called the shifting mound. And so what it is it wants you to bring them these versions of the princesses, which it calls vessels, so that it can evolve. And so this was that thing earlier where I really liked this storyline because it starts out, it's like you give it 1 and it's like, I am now an infant, and you give it 2 and it's like, I've made the evolution from an infant to a child. I'm getting more complex. I'm getting more experience and things like that. And there's at one point where it kind of talks about like, you're giving me these different experiences with these different princesses, and the experiences that they had then all become me. And I am a massive contradiction, which I thought was a great thing, where I'm like, I'm bringing these different experiences. I'm building a person, because we're all contradictions. Given the same situation many, many times, we will not act the same way every single time. We might act in opposite ways. As the great Billy Joe Armstrong once said, I'm a walking contradiction. And I forget the second half of it, but you know what I mean? I ain't got no life, maybe something like that.
Something
Anyway,
like that. It's been a minute.
Yeah. So I thought that this was what it was going to be. Like, we're building up this thing that is the product of the experiences, of the interactions that I had with these princesses, and everything that went into those then comes together and forms this being that we're creating. And it seemed to me like we're telling the story about, we are the product of our experiences and our interactions and things like that. And all of these contradictions, that's part of what makes us human. So I thought that this story at that point was really interesting. And it was a nice little like end to the chapters. And so like, you bring them 6 of these vessels, and then they are complete and you can move on to the ending. That's kind of like the structure of Slay the Princess.
Yeah. And like for me, the reason I wanted to bring up the shifting mound is because, as I understand it, you and what the shifting mound eventually becomes are 2 entities that once knew each other and loved each other. And then things separated you. It's unclear at that early moment what those things are. We'll learn. And like, I started to grok it a little bit that like there was a familiarity between you, the character you're playing, and the shifting mound, who doesn't know you, but wants to work with you to find understanding, meaning, grow, all of that.
Yeah.
And like, that hook was enough for me to want to see where everything went. It sounds like it was for you too. And like, I think that where for me, I leaned in, I was like, okay, well, so maybe this is where the love story is, but I'm not sure. Obviously, by the end, yes, this is where the love story lives, is in these in-between spaces, but it's not a direct love story in the early moments, because like you said, she is without memory and is trying to rebuild or create a being from these experiences.
Yeah. So as you go through and you're bringing more and more of these experiences, this was my favorite part of the game, was seeing how the shifting mound would evolve based on what I brought, what vessel was brought. But at the end, so I was like, okay, I'm going to bring these 6 unique things. They're special to my playthrough. And the shifting mound is going to be a product of those 6 things. Like, the things that I did, the results of my actions, will be brought to it. And that's not what happens. It directly tells you, don't worry if you miss vessels, I will vacuum them up. And so instead of being the product of the experiences that you bring, it is everything. And that sucks. I thought that this was a terrible conclusion to this, because it was almost, it's almost, I could have done anything to lead up to this point. It's like nothing that I did before matters in this storyline in the way that it said things were going to matter. Like, it doesn't matter that, because like, you can bring the vessels and you're like, tell me about this vessel. And it will say things like, it will give you a description. This vessel is full of love, but it's also full of hurt. I'm just making one up, but it's like, and then it's like, this vessel will contribute to this quality in my final form. Like, it tells you those things. And then at the end, those vessels don't really contribute anything special, because everything comes in at the end. it's not because like you go through the experiences and you talk to the princess again. So it's not like nothing matters, but I really wanted this to be unique. And maybe that's asking too much complexity. But I really wanted the product of my playthroughs to be the product of my playthroughs. And it's not. It's just everything.
Yeah, I'm glad that you caveated it that not that nothing matters, but that this
Right.
final thing doesn't feel to matter, because like this is that horrible straw man argument of like Mass Effect 3 sucks because the endings don't matter, which is a dumb argument that you and I have talked about that neither of us really agree with, that it's more nuanced than that. And like I think here it's more nuanced too for me in the fact that yes, the final version of the shifting mound is an amalgamation of all of them no matter what, but still the choices you made along that journey to get to that point all mattered in the sense that they were all different. I think from a narrative perspective, the way they wanted to do this is because, and I believe some of this stuff is new in the pristine cut, they wanted to have a conclusive, one of several conclusive endings. And so
Right.
that's why it vacuums them up. I do understand. So it's funny. I understand why you feel that way, but also you ended up not being a huge fan of the entire process the whole time. So you weren't going to go back and do the different ones anyway.
Well, I
So,
did. I mean, I did. I finished the game and I played half of it again,
well,
just to
that's true.
see like,
To
are
see,
things going
yeah.
to be different? Because, you know, the time commitment's not
Yeah.
huge, but it's just the thing where it's like, it's not the same as the Mass Effect 3 ending, because the Mass Effect 3 ending is just like this thing that like the whole game was not building up to that one
Right.
singular moment. The game had like its own plot. And then
Yeah.
like there was this extra thing at the end of Mass Effect 3. This one, the whole game is building up to this one moment when you give the last vessel to the shifting mound. And like, I was really interested to see like, what is the final product of this thing going to be? How are the different vessels that I contributed going to contribute to the final product? And it doesn't matter because the final product is every single possibility all at once. What I brought, all I did was like push the snowball down the hill, really.
So my question for you is, when you got to that final moment with the shifting mound, did you argue back and forth with the shifting mound?
Yes, because I did get the ending where you like go inside of it and talk with the princess again. So
Okay.
like I didn't submit to it and I didn't try to like fight it.
Okay.
I kept pushing so that I could like keep going with it.
Okay. Yeah, because the ending that I got, while I'm admittedly a little fuzzy on the details, because again my notes are terrible because I'm a terrible note taker. Um, I argued with it and it came back at me with different, like the princesses I encountered and some of their arguments and their aggression came back to me.
They
And
did.
so
Yeah.
like that's where I felt like, but I don't think I argued with every princess, even though the ones I didn't encounter. I felt like all the arguments that came back at me were from the princesses I picked and that I found. And so to that end, it still felt like it was composed of the princesses I found, even though at the end, it's an amalgamation of all of them.
But the princesses that you found are not the same as the princesses that I found, but we got the same ending. So it doesn't matter because it contains all of the princesses anyway. It just changes who pops into the conversation as far as the princesses go.
Yeah.
Like I was just really hoping, you know, maybe the complexity of the game and like how many different routes you can take made me think that this was possible, and maybe it would. I don't know. I don't know if it's like asking too much, but I really felt like they set this up where like I was going to have to reckon with the choices that I made at the end if I put together a shifting mound that's made of all these vessels of princesses that are fucking pissed off at me, like then I'm going to have to come to face with that. And the fact that some of those princesses like the ghost or the wraith and a couple of the other ones like legitimately would really fucking hate me at the end of it, that didn't factor into the ending at all because I could still go into the part where me and the princess have another dialogue. So that yeah, I've said it, I'm repeating myself, but like the shifting mound and what it ultimately became undercut what I thought was the most interesting part of the game.
So, just to be clear, I didn't get an ending where I spoke to the princess.
But we still had the moment, both of us did, where the different versions of the princesses like jumped into the conversation. We both had that.
Yes, correct. But my ending ended with me and the princess, the shifting mound, being gods and starting anew together
Right.
and flying off into the sunset, basically.
Because you chose that ending. I chose a different, because we had, I think you have
I
a
think
choice
it's like
where
to
you,
the end, yeah.
yeah. And I picked something different at that moment.
And that's what made you go in and talk to the princess. Okay, got it.
Right. So that's the shifting mound. Also, the thing about making a new universe ties into the narrator's story. And this seemed like, so the narrator's ultimate motivation is he wants to create a new universe without death.
Yeah.
There was a thing in the narrator's past that was traumatizing. Someone died. I get it. It sucks. So he wants to create a new universe without death. And he's facilitating this by helping the shifting mound grow, by pushing you into these situations to get the vessels and things like that. And I get that most of the little short stories in the game ended with death. And so I don't know, like, do they want you to experience that and be like, yeah, a world without death? That sounds good. Like, that sounds like a good thing. Because I didn't. Like, if video game stories and fiction in general has taught me anything, it's that death is necessary for a lot of reasons. And so this is another thing that, like, this is the big motivation behind it all. This does not work for me at all.
See, I don't agree that it's the big motivation for everything. I think that so you're right. The narrator apparently had something bad happen, fractures. You, the character, and the narrator are somehow one vessel, and it fractured itself to like use you basically to accomplish these tasks. I think that so the way I understood it was it wanted you to kill the princess because it doesn't know about the shifting mound because it's gone when you encounter the shifting mound. It's not present
That's right.
in that void.
It is.
And
but it and the shifting mound have the same motivation in the end. Because the shifting mound talks about a new universe devoid of death also.
No, that's true. Like because from what I understand, the narrator wants to keep you. See, my understanding was the narrator wanted to keep you and the princess like not falling in love. Your love would create this world that's flawed and not perfect, and so it fractured its own mind to remove that love, and then encouraged you to kill the princess so you could never find love. But the shifting mound found a way around it. And the when you encounter the long quiet and the glass shatters as you talk to the narrator the first time as a character and not as this omnipotent thing, it starts to explain why it did this, and that it was trying to escape the inevitable, which it couldn't. And I guess where I get hazy is both of their goals, but they don't know each other in the sense that they can't interact. The narrator knew the shifting mound and is trying to keep you apart, is how I read it.
Yeah, that could be it. But the shifting mound in its fully evolved form wants you to go along with its plan to sit and watch the universe die and watch the creation of a new one. And that's what the narrator wants too. He wants a universe without death.
So I don't remember the shifting mound saying specifically a world without death. They just wanted to let this universe die and a new one form, I thought.
Okay.
And
that's possibly true.
And then the narrator wanted a world without death because it experienced death and didn't want to be hurt in that way again. That was the conflicting things that I understood. But again, as I said at the very beginning, I wasn't 100% on all the details after even the 2 playthroughs.
Yeah. So the narrator's thing about, I want to bring about a world without death from the jump, dumb idea, not something worth pursuing. And then the shifting mound wants to sit and watch the universe end and watch a new one be born. Why? Why is that the thing that it wants? None of this shit makes any sense to me at the end of the game. It really feels like someone played one of the most acclaimed indie games of all time the day before writing the ending and being like, that's what we want too. We want the end of a universe and the birth of a new one. That sounds good. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it makes sense to me as a concept, but within the story of Slay the Princess, it makes no sense to me part of the reason it doesn't make any sense is the whole game takes place inside of an abstraction, right? You never see the outside world. You have no idea what's going on in the outside world. So is there an outside world? Every time we've tried to go out into it, we've been put right back in the forest. And if you try to leave the forest and go back to the outside world, time breaks. So all of this talk about like a world without death, we need to save the people in the world. They're like, what people in the world? Like, I'm not connected to this at all. And then when the shifting mound is like, let's watch the universe die and birth a new one. I'm like, why would I do that? What's the point of that?
Well, the point of that from the perspective of your character and the princess is birth this new world where we can be in love and exist in this place. Now, but again, it's reaching and you're connecting dots. I think I was intrigued by the questions. It sounds like you were mostly frustrated and felt left wanting by a lot of them, which I totally get. I think also this is a game that's meant to be an abstraction. It's meant to be confusing, which isn't always ideal. And like, I can see where you're coming from as far as because like it doesn't feel, your path didn't feel like it led to this story. And it also feels like at the end, it's all of these things pulled together. Whereas for me, I was kind of just following the journey and then I was at an ending and went, oh, well, that's how it ended. I guess I should try again and see where the hell I am.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was enjoying the ride of it fully. I wasn't annoyed by a cavalcade of voices all at once.
Yeah.
I think that's why this ending didn't bother me as much, because I enjoyed the ride to get there at every moment, which I can totally get. If you didn't, like, then you get to this and go, what the hell?
Well, so like I didn't love the moment to moment getting there. I had a couple routes that I thought were cool. I had a couple that I was really bored by, and I had a couple that like ended in ways that felt very random to me. But the content of those routes, like you said, didn't feel like it led to this moment at all. And it didn't feel like it led to like we're actually separated lovers. Like nothing that happened in my routes felt like it really led to that, except for that very last one, where you sit and talk and you reach this understanding about how, you know, if this happens again, we need to try to make the right decision. And so like, that happens in the ending where you can like go inside the shifting mound and go back into the cabin and talk to the princess again. And, you talk to the different versions of the princess in there. I think that's where that happened. And we have a choice. We can either like, here are the choices. So you can kill the princess and bring about the end of death, which is what the game says. Makes no sense to me. It's not the end of death. It's not like the end of the world that you're preventing. It's the concept of death you're removing from the world. And again, like, I've never seen the outside world. I have no connection to it. As far as I know, there is no outside world. The second choice is you can stay with the princess here and watch the universe end and have a new one. The third one is you can keep doing the loop forever and like hope that you choose not to kill the princess in the future, and she hopes that she chooses not to kill you. And then the last one is you can leave with the princess and like go out into the world. You have no idea what's out there. I chose option 3, which is to keep doing the loop and hope that we are better to each other next time, because that felt like the only option that really made sense to me. Option 4, where you go out into the world, I get that too. The other ones didn't make any sense to me at all. So I like the ultimate lesson where like we're trapped in this loop, and you can imagine this as like people in a relationship who like you're not, and it doesn't have to be like an abusive relationship. It can just be like, we haven't been the best to each other lately. Like the next time we're presented with the choice, we can be better to each other. I can be better toward you and vice versa. And like that stuff is really good. And I think this game is like about things like that. But I had so little of that up until this point. And then at the end of the game, the princess says, I love you. And I'm like, what? the fuck do you mean you love me? We've killed each other 5 times. Like, it really felt to me like they tell me at the beginning of the game, this is a love story, and I'm supposed to carry that in the back of my head. This is a love story. This is a love story. This is a love story. But my playthrough, there was no love in there. It was all killing until route number 6. And then that one worked. And then at the end, the princess is like, I love you. And I'm like, okay. It didn't feel like it was a love story other than the game telling me it was a love story, which didn't work for me because I need to see it. I need to have characters act like they love each other for it to be a love story.
See, I agree with that sentence because I think that from what I get from this game, that's meant to be a reveal. It's meant to be a contradiction. The story is meant to be a contradiction to a traditional love story, and you don't know why. And it's supposed to be
Yeah.
a big reveal at the end. And her saying, I love you at the end is supposed to be a culmination of the understanding through death that you got to. And I guess for me, why it worked is because there is very little or only small moments showing kindness and love that then leads to this moment. So I got this ending where you chose to repeat the loop and hope to do better next time
Mm-hmm.
before the the pristine cut. And I think a
Uh-huh.
lot of the shifting mound stuff, as much as we get the arguing back and forth, the the conversations you have with the shifting mound weren't as well well established as they are in this version. And so it just ends with a final trip back to the cabin. You have a choice whether to pick the knife or not. And if you pick the knife, you get to the cabin, have this last conversation with the princess, and you go, well, I do care. I understand now, and I care about you, and I don't want to hurt you. And then she just looks at you and goes, well, then why do you have the knife?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're just going to keep hurting each other. I
Yeah.
think what we need to do is try again. And that's when she says, I love you, and then kills you, kills herself. I can't remember which. I think kills you. And so, like, to me, that, like, when I first got that on my first playthrough, I was crushed because I was like, oh, if I didn't take the knife, would we have lived happily ever after?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the case, is the ending where you just go out into the woods, is if you don't take the knife, the two of you go out into the woods and experience whatever life has to offer. And so, like, to me, that felt heartbreaking when I experienced it, because after all of these mistakes and all of these choices and all of these decisions that felt definitive for me and things that I was like, I made that choice, I get to that final cabin and go, well, I've taken the knife every time. I'm going to take the knife. And then I get down there and the knife is the ultimate betrayal. Like, if you loved me, if you understood, why would you have the knife?
Mm-hmm.
That felt impactful to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
can see that. Yeah.
And so, like, again, while I totally understand your perspective from like that love, you wanted to see more of the love story throughout the entire game. I think for me, that impact hurt so much more because it wasn't there, because I was learning from my mistakes the hard way by engaging in this cycle of violence, which I think is part of the storytelling. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, again, like, I don't want to boil it down to just our tastes are different, because that feels like kind of reductive. I think it's clear that what Black Tabby is trying to do here worked for me and it didn't for you. And there are a bunch of reasons why. And it's interesting too, because it never occurred to me that it couldn't work for someone in that way until we had this conversation. Because again, I have not shut up about this on the internet quite a bit. And a lot of
Yeah.
the other conversations have been effusive praise like mine is. But it also shows how nuanced the storytelling is, in the sense that things that could work for someone else didn't work for you, and you had a different expectation set up by the shifting mound, and then you were just completely blindsided by I love you at the end, and you were like, why the hell do I love you? I don't where was the rest of this love story?
Yeah.
I think it's a trick at the start of this game that could go one of two ways, and we're representing it, right? Saying that at the beginning sets expectations, but what those
Yeah.
expectations become can morph and vary depending on the path you took and how the story plays out.
Yeah. I think that they want you to believe them that it's a love story, and no matter what happens, keep it in the back of your head that it's a love story at the end.
Yeah.
And I lost track of that at a certain point because there was nothing about our interactions that told me this is actually a love story.
Right.
And so when it happened at the end, it really gave me that feeling like, yeah, you said it was a love story, but what I played didn't feel like a love story. And then I can see where it's like that thing at the end, that's the hook. If you get this ending, especially, that's the hook to try playing the game again and see if you, and they give you the, like the scrapbook of all the different princesses. And then you can keep playing and see if you can do things differently, because
Yeah.
that's what the characters have said to each other that they're going to do. Now I did that. I played it again. All routes still led to violence when I played it again. So like, at what, like I don't think that if I play the game 5 times, suddenly like the 5th time it's like, oh, we're actually like we're having understanding here. I don't think that this actually does have an ending where they don't kill each other at the end of most of these stories. So like, what am I supposed to do here? Am I supposed to stop playing and like at the end of that first one and be like, I hope that these kids work it out in the future? Or am I supposed to keep playing the game and be disappointed by the fact that there is no improvement to be made? At the end of the first route, I feel like I got the ending that has the most humanity and understanding in it, because I did read about the other endings. And so, where's this story going? It doesn't seem like it's going in a direction where these characters will actually stop making the harmful choice. And maybe that's the point. Maybe we have 2 characters in this cycle of violence that love each other, but can't stop hurting each other. And that's a thing. That's a real thing that happens in the world. And if that's the point of it, then I see what they're doing. But it's kind of like, it's like you said, and it's like I've said, everyone's playthroughs are going to be so different based on what you pick. And there's so many different princesses that you can come across. And then I just don't think that any random collection of those 6 is going to produce a fully coherent ride through this. If you're really like, if you're really paying attention to what the game is talking about and what it's setting up, I think that if you're lucky, you'll get a majority of like little roots that support these ultimate things. I don't feel like I was lucky. I feel like my mindset probably didn't help, where like a couple times I made specific choices to try to be nice to the princess. But like, you give me a choose your adventure game, I'm going to fuck around and see where these weird side tangents are going to go.
Right.
And so I end up with something that feels very like, incoherent is a strong word, but it felt incoherent at the end of the game, where like, I had my fun. Now the developers are going to tell me what they want me to see. And those 2 things did not mesh for me.
Yeah, and I guess when I got to the end, especially of my first playthrough, I didn't feel like I was being told the ending. I feel like I earned it. Now, also, it takes 17 hours to complete this game, according to how long to beat. And I
Yeah.
don't know what that means, because again, I haven't done it yet. I do plan on my
I
PlayStation.
think it just means getting all the princesses. Like, again, I don't think like once you, and if I'm wrong, please tell me, because it'd be
Yeah.
really fucking cool if you actually get all the princesses and like you get the ending where like the characters, or you start to like get into a thing where like you see improvement in the characters. That would be cool. I don't think that's what's going to happen though.
I don't think there's like a bonus ending if you get all the princesses. I think you're hitting on it with, there is a, like, this cycle of violence and the cycle of harm attached to love, I think is part of this storytelling. And I
Yeah.
think part of that is what we're supposed to take from it. And I think since there is an ending where you and the princess go off into the world and throw your cares to the side and just go off into the world. I mean, that's the ending that ends the cycle of violence. If you never pick up the game again, if you never play it again, the
if
cycle
you break up,
right. I mean, like, I think that, I don't know if it's you're looking for more meaning that is there, if we're not looking for enough meaning.
it don't tell me not to look for meaning though. Like
No,
that
no, no.
sucks.
Well, no, and I'm not saying don't look for meaning. What I'm saying is I think that this story, you're right. This story is trying to tell a story and
Yeah.
convey meaning.
It's specifically about something.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I think ultimately what this is doing is like the author wants to tell a specific story as far as how love plays out, how love can hurt, how the cycle of violence and death and other things can complicate a relationship. And I do think that ultimately, if you feel like that, how we got to that point is unrewarding, this game is going to be hard to swallow as a whole. Whereas if you're along for the ride and you're not really concerned with where the disconnects are, or you aren't unsatisfied with the smaller parts, then you'll follow that ride to the end and just be like, all right, I finished the story. I think
Mm-hmm.
where we're hitting a conflict is you were expecting more, especially based on the hype, probably, and other things. Like you were expecting each specific path to go. And especially once you got to the end, you're like, wait, this is I know that they said it's a love story, but like, you love me? We killed each other 10 times, you know? And I
Yeah.
totally get that disconnect. I think for me, it's ultimately, I don't want to say the whole, I don't want to reduce it to this whole thing comes down to taste, because I feel like that's boring and we've had a much better discussion than that. But I do
Yeah.
think that's a big part of it. If you are driving with this story, and this is a visual novel thing, I think if you're driving with the story the whole way through and you're driving with the ending, then it's going to feel complete. If you're not driving with the parts and then you get to an ending that also doesn't feel conclusive or cohesive to what you experienced, that's going to sour the experience. And I think it's really great to talk about a visual novel this way, because like a book or something more passive, you can kind of either get it or not, and it could completely change how you view something like this. There's no mechanics to
Mm-hmm.
latch onto. There's no, like, the gameplay was good but the story was garbage, right? Not saying this is that. I'm just saying, like, there are other ways around other video games, whereas with a visual novel you really have to be on board for the whole thing, or
Yeah.
it's gonna feel like there's holes.
Yeah. And it also means that, like, for example, I think that the shifting Mound storyline is really unsatisfying in it. And we get that love story thing at the end, and I get what the thing about, like, the cycle of violence in a relationship, or maybe even characters, like, violence is the extreme example of like something more real in a long-term relationship, maybe. Like, I get that. I just didn't feel like it was supported the whole way through. And like I said, like, you can't just tell me these characters love each other. I need to see that they love each other to believe it. And I didn't feel like I saw it. And so in a visual novel, if those things are not working, if I feel like themes are abandoned or things are not very well set up, there is no gameplay to fall back on.
Yeah.
Like, I can play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and think that a lot of this, like, I just finished one of the DLCs and the story is so fucking bad. And I still had a good time because I like playing Pokemon games, and visual novels don't get the benefit of that. So that's why. I mean, we've been over why we each reach the point that where we're at.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder about, like, the structure of this. While it's cool, and it's impressive how complex it is and how many different choices your things can take, it makes me wonder, because there is a very specific story that is trying to be told here. It's not a choose your adventure where there's like 15 wildly different endings where,
Right.
like, you have 15 different adventures. It's not one of those. I wonder if the structure is like, would this game be better if there were less possibilities and each possibility was more strongly connected to those central themes, and there was less weirdness? And like, the sense of humor and stuff is, I think, pretty integral to the game. It does have a bit of a sense of humor to it, but I wonder, because I honestly feel like if I had played the game and done 6 wildly different routes, I might have had a better time, because I might have had things that felt more connected to the central story, the central theme. Whereas I was given the opportunity to fuck around and find out, and I did. And then I got to the ending and I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? Like, that's not what this game was about up until then. And so I wonder, like, giving all of that, did it need to be this big? Could it have been reined in? Let's just make up numbers and say that there's 75 princesses. Would this game be better if there was 15 princesses? You know?
Right. Well, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, there's, like, I think 13 or 14 princesses. There's not 75.
Really? That's it?
Uh-huh.
Huh. That's so, like, again, I don't fucking understand that scrapbook then, because there's room for like dozens and dozens of little princess portraits in that scrapbook.
Were there? I thought there was only so I mean, I think I can definitively look up how many princesses
We
there
can
are.
look it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're both on computers
Yes.
connected to the internet right now.
How many different? 24 versions. There are only 24
Okay. All
versions
right.
of princesses. So
So let me adjust that then.
yeah.
Would this game be better if there were 10? And those 10 were all like different, but still focused on that core thing? Because I didn't feel like all the ones that I got, they felt pretty scattershot. And so I just wonder, like, can you spin this big web and then tie it all back together at the end and have all different possibilities end in a satisfying ending? Because I definitely don't feel satisfied with what I got.
I don't think less princesses for me is the solve because I like the different routes. I think again, I engaged in this game when I saw it at PAX East. I always have to think whether I'm going to say the next word is East or West because my brain is broken. When I encountered at PAX East, the shock of like, what the hell am I going to get next?
Mhm.
Kind of was the intriguing part. And so while I enjoyed the ending, I think for me, the routes and the different princesses are why I'm playing this game. The overall narrative and stuff I enjoyed as well, and I thought was done well, but like I'm playing it for those routes and
Mm,
those princesses. And so to me, less and streamlining it would make it more boring and less kind of off the wall to me.
okay. And so, like, when I was playing, I was basically the opposite. I
Yeah.
was going through them, not so much interested in, like, what princess am I going to get this time? Not interested in the shock value, really. What I was interested in is, like, how is this decision going to play into how everything comes together?
Yeah.
So, approaching it from those two perspectives does explain why you like this game a lot more than I do.
Yep.
Even if you don't agree with like some of the criticisms about the ending that I had too, that like at the very beginning at least explains how where our experiences branched.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that we have slayed the princess, as it were. And yeah, it's still an interesting game. I'm just really conflicted, now thinking about it. Like, it's impressive, but I really do think if it was reined in a bit, I think it would have been better. I honestly do. It's still impressive that they wrote this much and that the different routes, like I never played different routes and was like, that's too similar to that other one.
Yeah.
I don't really feel that way, and that's impressive. But yeah, so we're gonna just start repeating ourselves, and the recording is over 2 hours, so I'm officially allowed to die now. So thank you, Matt, for coming on the show, and a challenging episode, especially because you knew ahead of time I didn't like this game at all. But I appreciate your contribution to the discussion as always.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm always like I'm a little nervous to go onto a podcast when I know someone didn't like a thing, except unless it's Bayonetta 3, in which we both are basically trying to find any good we can.
That's
Uh,
true.
Still drives me crazy. That was
Good
my first
music.
appearance. The music was great. I hear it runs much better on the Switch too.
Hey, there we go.
But like I'm never worried about having this conversation with you because you never walk in and go, this stunk, and here's why it stunk. Like it just stunk. You always have reasons. You always want to engage in conversation. That's the whole point of this podcast. You're not going to go on and just go, that sucks, I'm done. Even when you're frustrated or dislike a thing, you want to engage in conversation and discovery. And I've listened to many episodes where you didn't like something and your guest loved it, and you navigate that space. And I'm glad that I got to have one of those episodes
Hmm.
because it's no fun to just go somewhere and just go, well, this is bad and you suck for liking it, which is never the
No,
case here.
that's
It's
not the vibe here.
no.
Yeah.
And so I thank you for having me. I really thought this was going to be a slam dunk, and it's always fun. This happened a few times between us where I play a game and I'm like, oh, this is great. Dave's going to love it. And you go, man, that was terrible. And I go, wait, what? Sea of Stars, most famously. And so
Oh yeah.
again, other game I love unabashedly, and you were less than happy with. But that's why I like your show and I like coming on your show because you engage in dynamic conversations, very detailed, 2 hours plus long, detailed
Hmm.
conversations about the dynamics of games. And this show exemplifies the thing that Jeff and I say on our show all the time. Every game is somebody's favorite. Quality of games be damned, it doesn't matter. Everyone's game is somebody's favorite because we all engage in this medium differently. And that's why video games are so fascinating to me. So all of that blowing smoke up your ass to say thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
My ass is very smoky and it's very pleasant. So thank you. Uh, yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And I think the next one that we do, I would be shocked if I didn't like the next game that we're going to do.
Oh, yeah.
So everyone can look forward to Matt and I talking about Mina the Hollower later this year.
Yep.
And again, that would be like the biggest shock in the world if I didn't like Mina the Hollower. So
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Might have to hang up the microphone if that happens and just be like, well, I guess I don't know myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I appreciate you. Everyone who's still here with us, I appreciate you all too. Make sure you check down in the show notes as well to find links to everything that Matt does. As Matt and Jeff say on Fun and Games, every game is somebody's favorite game. And if you look through those side quest episodes, you'll find up to 400, maybe by the time you hear this.
Over 400 by the time you hear this.
400.
It won't be healthy for your backlog. SideQuest is great, but not great for your backlog.
Yeah, well, this show's, terrible for people's backlogs too. So I hope people have enjoyed the discussion here, and I hope to, number one, continue it in the Discord server, but also head on over to Fun and Games and Reignite if you're playing the BioWare games, and follow along with their journeys over there too. So thank you, everybody. Tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun. Whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen,
And I am Matt, aka Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
Welcome to No Small Games, the indie gaming recap and review podcast. I'm Kate, also known as Cater Blossom.
And I'm Emily. You might also know me online as The Specific Egg.
And we met streaming and playing video games on Twitch.
At No Small Games, we combine our favorite genres to experience everything the indie game world has to offer and share it with all of you. We believe there are no small games, only small game studios.
Each episode, we'll choose one indie game that we each played separately and discuss our playthrough experience together.
The good, the bad, and our most memorable moments. We'll follow our recap with a review and announcement of which indie game will be featured on our next episode.
We invite you to play each game along with us and would love to hear from you about your playthrough experience.
Hey, Kate.
Hey, Emily.
I hope that No Small Games brings everyone some big fun.